NFL Week 12 is here. That means it is time to set ourselves some DFS lineups once more, Ed. We'll begin where we always do. Let's take a look at top game runs. Now, there are a couple of games that were in consideration here, so I've decided to stick thematically and go for what was your game of the week on the main show, which is Colts versus Chiefs. It's an important game, isn't it, when we think about just actual game narrative at the moment?
Yeah, obviously a massive game. I think it's going to be interesting. You know, obviously two offenses that have been Colts have been very good. Chiefs maybe a bit hot and cold. And I mean, I'm not massively confident. If I was going under/over on this game, I think I'd probably go under. So I'm not massively drawn to many players in the lineup. I don't know whether you're the same.
Oh, I would confidently go for the under on this. It's one of the reasons I wanted to mention it. So looking at fantasy points against at the moment. So the Chiefs given at 23rd most QBs. So bottom half, 26 to running backs, 26 to wide receivers, 26 to tight ends. So they're in around that ninth fewest overall. So that's kind of obviously really low. You're looking at the Colts, 21st to quarterbacks, 23rd to running backs, but then 10th most to wide receivers, 4th most to tight ends. So that's where a bit more of the intrigue comes into me. I'll be completely honest, I would not be looking at this game for stacks at all. It really doesn't appeal to me from that point of view. There's only one player that jumps out to me to want to plug in, and that is because the Colts get the 4th most fantasy points against tight ends, because he's been in a decent vein of form. Travis Kelce at 4,600. I quite like this week. 5,000 on DraftKings. That seems a decent pick. And then looking at the fact that the Colts always give the 10th most to wide receivers, he's expensive. There's a case to make for Rashee Rice. I'm not sure it's a case that I'm going to convince myself of, though. Would you be tempted by Rice?
Yeah, I would have said exactly the same names are the only ones that would be in consideration. I mean, Kelce at 4,600 is probably, correct me if I'm wrong, the most expensive tight end. Maybe Trey McBride is more. So he's still pricey for a tight end. I mean, JT is so expensive. He's matchup proof, isn't he? But if you do take JT, you're going to leave yourself short elsewhere potentially. I could be tempted by Rashee Rice, but as you say, he's a little bit on the pricey side.
I think looking at the Colts, every single one of those players in your redraft dynasty leagues, you are absolutely starting all of those this week. I don't think I would pay for any of them in DFS, though. Jonathan Taylor, you're right, he is matchup proof. He's not going to have a complete disappearing act. It's highly unlikely. But at the same time, is he going to give you the level of return you're hoping for from your top priced asset, especially 10,000 on DraftKings? Any other week, yeah, you can make a case. This week just feels a little bit riskier for me. So I think I might steer clear from that. Having a look, though, for our stack of the week. And my stack of the week, Ed, I am going to take a look at the Eagles. I am looking at Jalen Hurts and Devonta Smith. So, especially on Fantasy Gameday, quite expensive. DraftKings, quite a tempting price there, right? So I'd be quite happy with that price there. But it projects to pay off because they have the Cowboys. Most fantasy points going to quarterbacks, 3rd most to wide receivers. I think that defense is looking a little bit more improved recent weeks, but I still think this has got a route to paying off. So despite the price point, I like this as a stack. Hurts has only had 5 top 12 weeks, though. Smith has only had 3, so it's far from risk-free. So this is definitely me banking on the Cowboys continuing to cowboy. And I'd really hope for 10 targets Smith, which he's seen on 3 occasions so far this season. And I just think he's more reliable than AJ Brown, who still bizarrely last week, if you've got me in fancy, get rid of me. That is not a player who's happy. That is not a player you want to target. I think potentially Philly might listen to that in the offseason as well, and maybe they'll be getting rid of him too. Before we move on to your stat, though, Ed, please do everyone take a moment to subscribe, like, share. And then if you are playing Fantasy Game Day for the first time this week, use that promo code THFF1 for 1 free play with your first paid entry for all of our viewers here in the UK. Your stack of the week is also a tasty one, Ed, and one that I quite like the look of as well this week.
Yeah, indeed. We go to Detroit and we're looking at Jared Goff and Amon-Ra. On Fantasy Game Day, they're identically priced at 7,200. And I suppose, when you add together similar with DraftKings as well. A fairly pricey stack. It's not going to leave you loads to play with. But I do think that both players represent excellent value this week. It's not often that Amon-Ra is the sixth most expensive wide receiver and Goff is the eighth most expensive QB. Plus, you need to take into account their opposition this week. They have got the Giants this week, who are giving up the second most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks and the sixth most fantasy points per game to wide receivers. I've also got a gut feeling, Mark. Amon-Ra has only had one monster week so far this season, and that doesn't seem like enough for Amon-Ra. So I think he's due another one this week. So that is why I'd be confident in this stack. And I think that leads us nicely into our captain's pick, doesn't it?
I could not agree with you more, and that is why Amon-Ra St.Brown is my captain pick of the week. For all the reasons that you have said, we've got wide receiver 5 overall on the season against the defense, given the 5th most fantasy points going to wide receivers. It makes this pick. I'm really happy to go for my captain spot and would happily stack him as well. And as you said, 6th most expensive wide receiver and the 10th highest priced captain eligible player on Fantasy Game Day this week. Potentially that might mean he is not targeted quite so much. People often feel they need to go for the most expensive players in the captain slot. So you might get that there. Last week, he was inexplicably quiet. 2 receptions from 12 targets, 6.2. So I put money on a get right game, and that most technical of fantasy points is due one. Sometimes it seems that, but I completely agree with you. For all those reasons, I'd be relatively confident plugging Amon-Ra in this week as well. That might mean, though, with some of those stacks, you need to save a little bit of money elsewhere. So you're going to need a bargain basket pick. And Ed, this week, I've gone for Emmanuel Wilson. He's a bargain on Fantasy Game Day, but not on DraftKings. DraftKings is kind of, I think, fairly priced. We're getting a bit of a steal for those who's playing Fantasy Game Day this week. Josh Jacobs, at time of recording, is still day-to-day. Day-to-day is not a phrase I like to hear with my running backs, because day-to-day can very quickly turn into out. Even if he is in, he may still be limited. He's had something of a role so far this season as well, Emmanuel Wilson. It wasn't just last week. He had a couple of games where he's had more touches. I think he showed enough last week that he will still be in the mix, even if Josh Jacobs is back. Will he be a top 24 RB again? Probably not. Will he return enough to justify spending $2,800 on him whilst you save money to pay up elsewhere? I reckon so. I think the case to be putting him in, though, is a bit tougher on DraftKings. And at that price on DraftKings, I think I would only be happy if Jacobs is out. I don't think I'd pay that price if Jacobs is still in. What about you? Where are you at on Wilson? Obviously, he was one of our waiver wire pickers. He was for many people this week. Would you be confident in picking him this week?
Yeah, you've made the perfect case for him. Yeah, Fantasy Game Day, I think either or, whether Jacobs is in or out. But if I was playing on DraftKings, I'd only be risking him if Jacobs was out. I think he just wouldn't have the workload otherwise.
Finally, then, for those who playing Fantasy Game Day over here in the UK, we have our Triple Crown pick. So a reminder, the Triple Crown game, you get a choice of 1 of 3 quarterbacks, 1 of 3 running backs, 1 of 3 wide receivers, and you just have to pick which one will have the highest score each week. It's 3 times 3 times 3. You've got 1 in 27 chance. Ed, who have you gone for this week as your quarterback, running back, and wide receiver for your Triple Crown pick?
I found it quite easy this week. Drake May, he has the Bengals, that's all. Jahmyr Gibbs, we've mentioned that leaky Giants defense. And again, they're not doing well against running backs. They're giving up the second most fantasy points per game to running backs. So Jahmyr Gibbs should have a good game. And Amon-Ra, as I said earlier, great matchup. And I think he's due a big week. So it's quite easy for me. May, Gibbs, and Amon-Ra, I imagine is going to be quite a popular trio. Were you thinking similar?
It's popular on the show. because I got to our show document after I put my picks into Fantasy Game Day, and my notes below yours simply say exactly the same. So, yeah, Daniel Jones against Kansas and Patrick Mahomes against Indy. We've said already that we don't feel greatly confident in them this week. So, yeah, Drake May at the Bengals. That seems, for me, the only logical pick here, if I'm completely honest. I went the same. Jahmyr Gibbs against that leaky Giants defense. Travion Henson against Cincinnati. That is very, very tempting. But Henderson is Gibbs light. So when it's similar situations, I'm going for Gibbs in that situation. And Jonathan Taylor could very easily, regardless of the matchup, romp to 30, 40 points. We've seen it happen over and over again. But for all the reasons I said before, I wasn't quite so keen on him. I agree with you. And then Amon-Ra, once again, it's the exact same reason. T. Higgins is an interesting one because of the workload, but how much coverage is he going to attract without Liam McSpitface playing up alongside him?
Liam McSpitface, I love it. I mean, Higgins has been decent recently, but yeah, you're exactly right. And plus, Flacco hasn't looked great. He's looked injured, hasn't he? So I don't. I think I'd expect Higgins to have an okay week, but not a great week.
Yeah. So Rashee Rice, we've said earlier, there is a route to him performing. I just think Amon-Ra St.Brown is on for a stonker of a week. So, yeah, we are all in agreement, Ed, and I can't see any possible way that is not the winning combination. If that is the winning combination, we are not sharing very much money between everyone. I don't think this week. That is all then for our Week 12 DFS Red Hot picks. We will be back next week for our Week 12 review. Heroes and zeros. Hopefully we will be heroes because we've helped everyone win some cash money. We shall wait and see. Anything you want to add for our Week 12 DFS slate though, Ed?
I just, as always, wish everyone good luck.
So that's all from me, all from Ed. As usual, bada bing, bada bye. Malcolm, take us home.
You have been listening to the team from TH Fantasy Football. For more content, follow TH_fantasy_NFL on Twitter and Instagram.